Hey guys, this is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. Amish Mindset. And if you get anything from my work, an epiphany, a connect the dot moment, a new book to read, a new author to explore, please consider supporting my work. All the links will be linked down below. I am hoping that if I get some things printed out, which I have to find a printer and then get it back to these people, I might be closing very soon, which is not a happy thing necessarily because they're looking towards the Thanksgiving area, which kind of sucks. But anywho, wasn't looking forward to moving in December. It is what it is, right? Blavatsky, The Secret Doctrine, stanza 7. And we're going to start stanza 7. It's a good one. Behold the beginning of sentient formless life. First, the divine vehicle, the one from the mother spirit, Atman, then the spiritual, Atman Buddhi, spiritual soul. The 3 from the 1, the 4 from the 1, and the 5, from which the 3, the 5, and the 7, these are the threefold and the fourfold downward, the mind-born sons of the first Lord, the shining 7. It is they who are thou, me, him, O Lando, they who watch over thee and thy mother, Brumi, the earth. The hierarchy of the creative powers is divided into 7 or 4 and 3, esoteric, within the 12 great orders recorded in the 12 signs of the zodiac, the 7 of the manifesting scale being connected, moreover, with the 7 planets. All these is subdivided into numberless groups of divine, spiritual, semi-spiritual, and etherical beings. The chief hierarchies among these are hinted at in the great quaternary, or the 4 bodies and the 3 faculties of Brahma, esoterically, and the Patashayam, the 5 Brahmas, or the 5 Dhyan Buddhas in the Buddhist system. The highest group is composed of the divine flames, so-called, also spoken of as the fiery lions and the lions of life, whose esotericism is securely hidden in the zodiacal sign of Leo. It is the nucleo of the superior divine world. They are the formless fiery breaths, identical in the one aspect with the upper Here again is my projection issue. Sifthorial triad. Totally butchered that, but you guys can figure that one out. Which is placed by the Kabbalists in the archetypal world. The same hierarchy with the same numbers is found in the Japanese system in the beginnings, as taught by both Shinto and the Buddhist sects. In this system, anthropogenesis precedes cosmogenesis, as the divine merges into the human and creates midway in its descent into matter the visible universe. The legendary personages remarks reverently omoi, having to be understood as a stereotyped embodiment of the higher secret doctrine and its sublime truths. To state it in a full length, however, would occupy too much of our space. But a few words on the old systems cannot be out of place. The following is a short synopsis of the anthropocosmogenesis, and it shows how closely the most separated notions echoed one of the same archaic teachings. When all was as yet chaos, three spiritual beings appeared on the stage of future creation. Divine monarch of the central heaven, exalted imperial divine offspring of heaven and earth, and offspring of the gods simply. These were without form or substance, as neither the celestial nor the terrestrial substance had yet differentiated, nor had the essence of things been formed. In the Zohar, which is now arranged and re-edited by Moses de Leon, with the help of Syrian and Chaldean Christian Gnostic in the 12th century, and corrected and revised still later by many Christian hands, is only a little less esoteric than the Bible itself. The divine vehicle no longer appears as it does in the Chaldean book of Numbers. True enough, Ein Sof, the absolute endless nothing, uses also the form of the one, the manifested heavenly man, the first cause, as its chariot, Merkaba in Hebrew. Vahan in Sanskrit, or vehicle, to describe into and manifested through in the phenomenal world. But the Kabbalists neither make it plain how the absolute can use anything or exercise any attribute whatever, since, as the absolute is the devoid of attributes, nor do they explain that in reality it is the first cause, Plato's logos, the original and eternal idea that manifests through Adam Kadmon, the second logos, so to speak. In the book of Numbers, it is explained that in Awar is the only self-existent, whereas in depth is only periodical. The latter is Brahma, as differentiated from Brahma or Parabrahman. It is the depth, the source of light, or proprietor, which is the unmanifold logos, or the abstract idea, and not Ein Sof, whose ray uses Adam Kadmon, or the manifested logos, the objective universe, male and female, or a chariot through which to manifest. But in the Zohar, we read the following incongruity. Sorry, guys. This is a fallacy, since microphosphorus, or the microcosm, can only exist during the manifestations and is destroyed during the Mahapralayas. Rosenthal's Kabbalah is no guide, but very often a puzzle. As in the Japanese system, in the Egyptian, and every old cosmogony, at the divine flame, the one, are lit, the three descending groups. Having their potential being in the higher group, they now become distinct and separate entities. These are called the virgins of life, the great illusion, and collectively, the six-pointed star. The latter is a symbol in almost every religion of the Logos as the first emanation. It is that of Vishnu in India, the chakra or wheel, and the glyph of the tetragrammaton, the he of the four letters, or metamorphically, the limbs of microphosphorus in the Kabbalah, which are the 10 and 6 respectively. The later Kabbalists, however, especially the Christian mystics, have played sad havoc with the magnificent symbol. For the 10 limbs of the heavenly man are the 10 Sephiroth. For the first heavenly man is the unmanifested spirit of the universe, and ought never to be degraded into microphosphorus, the lesser face or countenance, the prototype of man on the terrestrial plane. Of this, however, later on, the six-pointed star refers to the 6 forces or powers of nature, the 6 planes, principles, all synthesized by the 7th or the central point in the star. All these, the upper and lower hierarchies included, emanated from the heavenly or celestial virgin, the great mother in all religions, the Adranine, the Sifra Adam Kadmon. In its unity, primordial light is the 7th or highest principle, Davi Pragati, the light of the unmanifested logos. But in its differentiation, it became Fohat, or the 7 sons. The former is symbolized by the central point in the double triangle. the latter by the hexagon itself, or the 6 limbs of the micropospherus, the 7th being Malkuth, the bride of the Christian Kabbalists, or our earth, hence the expression. The first after the one is divine fire, the second fire and ether, the third is composed of fire, ether, and water, the fourth of fire, ether, water, and air. The one is not concerned with man bearing globes, but with the inner invisible spheres. The firstborn are the life, the heart, and pulse of the universe. The second are its mind or consciousness, as said in the commentary. The second order of celestial beings, those of fire and ether, corresponding to spirit and soul, or the Atma Buddhi, whose names are legion, are still formless but more definitely substantial. They are the first differentiation in the secondary evolution or creation, a misleading word. As the names show, they are the prototypes of the incarnating Javas or monads, and are composed of the fiery spirit of life. It is through these that passes like a pure solar beam, the ray which is furnished by them with its future vehicle, the divine soul Buddha. These are directly concerned with the hosts of the higher world of our system. From these twofold units emanate the threefold. In the cosmogony of Japan, when out of the chaotic mass, an egg-like nucleus appears, having within itself the germ of and potency of the universe, as well as all terrestrial life. It is the threefold just named which differentiates. The male ethereal principle ascends, and the female grosser or more material principle is participated into the universe of substance when a separation occurs between the celestial and terrestrial. From this, the female, the mother, the first rudimentary objective being is born. It is ethereal, without form or sex, and yet it is from this and the mother that the 7 divine spirits are born, from whom all emanate the 7 creations, just as in the Codex Nazareth, from Carabantos and the mother Spirituus, the 7 evilly disposed material spirits are born. It would be too long to give here the Japanese names, but one translated, they stand in this order. The invisible celibate, which is the creative logos of the non-creating father, or the creative potentiality of the latter made manifest. The spirit or the god of the rayless depths of chaos, which becomes differentiated matter or the world stuff, also the mineral realm. The spirit of the vegetable kingdom of the abundant vegetation, this one of a dual nature, being at the same time the spirit of the earth and the spirit of the sands, the former containing the potentiality of the male element, the later that of the female element, the two forming a combined nature. These two were one, yet unconscious of being two. In this duality, we contain the male dark and masculine being, and the female fair and weaker or more delicate being than this. Spirits who were analogous or dual sexed, androgynous, see, that doesn't want to come out. And finally, the 7th spirit, the last emanated from the mother, appears at the last divine human form, distinctly male and female. It was the 7th creation, as in the Puranas, wherein man in the 7th creation of Brahma. These descended into universe by the celestial bridge, the Milky Way, and perceiving far below a chaotic mass of cloud and water, thrust his jeweled spear into the depths, and dry land appeared. Then two separated to explore the newly created island world. Such are the Japanese esoteric fables, the Rind that conceals the kernel of the same one truth of the secret doctrine, turning back to the esoteric explanation in every cosmogony. The third order corresponds to the Atma Buddha Manas, spirit, soul, and intellect, and is called the triads. The fourth are substantial entities. This is the higher group among the rupas, atomic forms. It is the nursery of the human conscious spiritual souls. They are called the imperishable Javas and constitute, through the order below their own, the first group of the first centenary, host the great mystery of human consciousness. An intellectual being, for the latter are the field wherein lies concealed in its perviation the germ that will fall into generation. That germ will become the spiritual potency in the physical cell that guides the development of the embryo, and which is the cause of the hereditary transmission of faculties and all inherent qualities in man. The Darwinian theory, however, of the transmission of acquired faculties is neither taught nor accepted in occultism. Evolution in it proceeds on quite another line. The physical, according to the esoteric teaching, evolving gradually from the spiritual, mental, and psychic. This inner soul of the physical cell, the spiritual plasm that dominates the germinal plasma, is the key that must open one day the gates of the terra incognita of the biologist, now called the dark mystery of embryology. The fifth group is the very mysterious one, as it is connected with the microcosmic pentagon, the five-pointed star representing man. In India and Egypt, these Dhyans were connected with the crocodile, and their abode is in Capricornus. These are the convertible terms in Indian astrology, as the 10th sign of the zodiac is called Makara, loosely translated crocodile. The word itself is occultly interpreted in various ways, as will be shown further on. In Egypt, the defunct man, whose symbol is the pentagram or the five-pointed star, the points of which represent the limbs of man, was shown emblematically transformed into the crocodile Sibeth or Sivaka, or seventh, as Mr. Gerald Massey says, showing it having been the type of intelligence is a dragon in reality, not a crocodile. He is the dragon of wisdom, or manas, the human soul, mind, the intellect principle, called in our esoteric philosophy the fifth principle, says the defunct Orisfield, Book of the Dead, or the ritual under the glyph of mummiform god with the crocodile's head. I am the god crocodile presiding at the arrival of his soul among men. I am the god crocodile brought from destruction, an allusion to the destruction of divine spiritual purity. When the man acquires the knowledge of good and evil, also to the fallen gods or angels of every theology. I am the fish of the great Horus, the vehicle of Varana. I emerge in Sektin. This last sentence gives the corroboration of and repeats the doctrine of esoteric Buddhism, for it alludes directly to the fifth principle manas, or the most spiritual part of its essential, rather, which merges into, is absorbed by, and made one with the Atma Buddhi after the death of man. For Sekhin is the residence or loka of the god Kem, or Osiris, or father and son, hence the devachan of Atma Buddhi. In the ritual of the dead, the defunct is shown entering into Sekhem with the Horus thought and emerging from it as pure spirit. Thus the defunct says, I see the forms of myself as various men transforming eternally. I know this chapter. He who knows it takes all kinds of living forms. And in verse 35, addressing in magical formula that which is called in Egyptian esotericism the astral heart, or the reincarnating principle, the permanent ego, the defunct says, quote, O my heart, my ancestral heart necessary for my transformations, do not separate thyself from me before the guardian of the scales. Thou art my personality within my breast, divine companion watching over my flesh bodies, end quote. It is in Sekhem that lies concealed the mysterious face, or the real man concealed under the false personality, the triple crocodile of the Egypt, the symbol of the higher trinity of human triad, Atma Buddhi and Manas. In all the ancient priory, the crocodile is called Sebek, seventh, while the water is the fifth principle esoterically, and as already stated, Mr. Gerald Massey shows that the crocodile was the seventh soul and the supreme one of seven, the seer unseen. Even esoterically, Shechem is the residence of the god Kem, and Kem is Horus, avenging the death of his father Osiris, hence punishing the sins of man when he becomes a disembodied soul. Thus, the defunct Osirified became the god Kem, who gleans the field of Anaro. He gleans either his reward or punishment at the field in the celestial locality, where the defunct is given wheat, the food of divine justice. The fifth group of the celestial beings is supposed to contain in itself the dual attributes of both the spiritual and physical aspects of the universe, the two poles, so to say, of Mathat, the universal intelligence, and the dual nature of man, the spiritual and the physical. Hence the number 5 multiplied, made into 10, connecting with Makara, the 10th sign of the zodiac. Damn. The 6th and 7th groups partake of the lower qualities of the quaternary. They are the conscious ethereal entities, as visible as ether, which are shot out like the burrows of a tree from the first central group of the 4, and shoot out in their turn numberless side groups, the lower of which are the nature spirits or elementals of countless kinds of varieties, from the formless and unsubstantial, the ideal thoughts of their creators, down to the atomic and the atomic through to human perception and visible organisms. The latter are considered as the spirits of atoms, for they the first removed backwards from the physical atom, sentient, if not intelligent creatures. They are all subject to karma and have to work it out through every cycle. For as the doctrine teaches, there are no such privileged beings in the universe, whether in our or in other systems, in the outer or the inner worlds, as the angels of the Western religion and of the Judean. The Dayan Kohen has to become one. He cannot be born or appear suddenly on the plane of life as a full-blown angel. The celestial hierarchy of the present Manavatra will find itself transferred in the next cycle of life into higher, superior worlds, and will make room for a new hierarchy composed of the elect ones of our mankind, being in an endless cycle within the one absolute eternity, wherein moved numberless inner cycles in finite conditioned. Gods created as such would invent no personal merit in being gods. Such a class of beings, perfect only by virtue of the special immaculate nature inherent in them, in the face of suffering and struggling humanity, and even of the lower creation, would be the symbol of eternal injustice, quite satanic in character, and ever-present crime. It is an anomaly and an impossibility in nature. Therefore, the 4 and the 3 have to incarnate as all other beings have. This 6th group, moreover, remains almost inseparable from man, who draws from it at all but its highest and lowest principles, or is his spirit body, the 5 middle human principles being the very essence of the Dayans. Along the divine ray, the Atman proceeds directly from the One. When asked how they can be, how is it possible to conceive that those gods or angels can be at the same time their own emanations in their personal selves? It is in the same sense in the material world, where the Son is, in one way, his Father, being the blood, the bone of his bone, and flesh of his flesh. To this the teacher answer, verily it is so. But one has to go deep into the mystery of being before he can fully comprehend the truth. Very interesting. Stanza 7, 2. The one ray multiplies the smaller rays. Life precedes form, and life survives the last atom. Through the countless rays, the life ray, the one, like a thread through many beads. This sloka expresses the conception of purely Vedic, one, as already explained elsewhere, of a life thread. Sutrama, running through successive generations. How then can this be explained? By resorting to a simile, to a familiar illustration through necessary, imperfect, as all our available analogies must be, before resorting to it. However, I would ask whether it seems unnatural, less of all supernatural to any one of us, when we consider the process known as the growth and development of fetus into a healthy baby weighing several pounds evolves from what? From the segmentation of an infinitesimal small ovum and a spermatozoon, and afterwards we see the baby develop into a 6-foot man. This refers to the atomic and physical expansion from the microscopically small into something very large, from the naked eye unseen into the visible and objective. Science has provided for all this, and I dare say her theories, embryonical, biological, and physiological, are correct enough as far as exact observation of the material goes. Nevertheless, the two chief difficulties of science of embryology, namely, what are the forces of work in the formation of the fetus and the cause of hereditary transmission or likeness, physical, moral, or mental, have never been properly answered, nor will they ever be solved till the day when scientists condense to accept the occult theories. But if this physical phenomena astonishes no one, except in so far it puzzles the embryologist, why should our intellectual and inner growth, the evolution of the human spiritual to the divine spiritual, be regarded as or seen more impossible than the other? Now to the simile. Complete the physical plasm mentioned in the last footnote. The germinal cell of man, with all its material potentialities, with the spiritual plasm, so to say, or the fluid that contains the 5 lower principles of the 6th principle, Dhyan, and you have the secret if you are spiritual enough to understand it. Quote, when the seed of the animal man is cast into the soil of the animal woman, that seed cannot germinate unless it has been fructified by the 5 virtues, the fluid of, or the emanation from the principles of the 6-fold heavenly man. Wherefore, the microcosm is represented as the pentagon, within the hexagon star, the macrocosm. Then the functions of the viva, or the earth, are of 5-fold character. In the mineral atom, in its connection with the lowest principles of the spirits of earth, the 6-fold dhyanas. In the vegetable particle, with their 2nd, the prana, life. In the animal, with all these plus the 3rd and the 4th, in man, the germ must receive the fruition of all the 5. Otherwise, he will be born no higher than an animal. End quote. Namely, a congenital, I don't like to say this, idiot. Thus, in man alone, the Java is complete. As to his 7th principle, it is but one of the beams of the universal sun. Each rational creature receives only the temporary loan of that which has to return to its source, while his physical body is shaped by the lowest terrestrial lives through physical, chemical, and physiological evolution. The Blessed One have not to do with the purgations of matter. It comes to this: mankind, in its first prototypical, shadowy form, is the offspring of the Elohim of life, or Pitras. In its qualitative and physical aspect, it is the direct progeny of the ancestors, the lowest dhyans, or spirits of the earth. For it is moral, psychic, and spiritual nature, it is indebted to a group of divine beings, the name and characteristics of which will be given in Book 2. Collectively, men are the handiwork of hosts of various spirits. Distributively, the tabernacles of those hosts, and occasionally and singly, the vehicles of some of them. In our present all-material fifth race, the earthly spirit of the fourth is still strong in us, but we are approaching a time when the pendulum of evolution will direct its swing decidedly upwards, beginning humanity back on a parallel line with the primitive third root race in spirituality. During its childhood, mankind was composed wholly of the angelic hosts, who were the indwelling spirits that animated the monstrous and gigantic tabernacles of play of the fourth race, built by, as they are now also, and composed of countless myriads of lives. This sentence will be explained later on in the present commentary. The tabernacles have improved in texture and symmetry of form, growing and developing with the globe that bore them, but the physical improvement took place at the expense of the spiritual inner man and nature. The three middle principles in earth and man became every race more material, the soul stepping back into making room for the physical intellect, the essence of elements becoming the material and composite elements now known. Man is not, nor could he be, the complete product of the Lord God, but he is the child of the Elohim, or arbitrarily changed into the singular masculine gender. The first Dionysus, commissioned to create man in their image, could only throw off their shadows like a delicate model for the nature spirits of matter to work upon. Man is, beyond any doubt, formed physically out of the dust of earth, but his creators and fashioners were many. Nor can it be said that the Lord God breatheth into his nostrils the breath of life, unless the God is identified with the one life, omnipresent through invisible, and unless the same operation is attributed to God on behalf of every living soul, or nephesh, which is the vital soul, not the divine spirit or ruach, which ensures to man alone a divine degree of immortality that no animal as such could ever obtain in this cycle of incarnation. It is in inadequate distinctions made by the Jews and now by our Western metaphysicians, who, not knowing of and being unable to understand, hence to accept more than a triune man, spirit, soul, body, thus confuse the breath of life with immortal spirit. This applies also directly to the Protestant theologians, who, in translating in the fourth gospel, have entirely perverted the meaning. Indeed, the verse is made to say, quote, the wind bloweth where it listeth, end quote, instead of the spirit goeth where it willeth, as the original and also the translation of Greek Eastern Church. Thus, the philosophy of psychic, spiritual, and mental relations with man's physical functions is an almost inextricable confusion. Neither the old Aryan nor the Egyptian psychology are now properly understood, nor can they be assimilated without accepting the esoteric cemetery, or at any rate the Vedic wow, can't pronounce that, division of the human inner principles. Holy, can't project that. Sorry, guys. It's a big word. With a lot of quas that I can't out. Failing which, it will be ever impossible to understand metaphysically and purely psychic and even psychophysiologically relations between the Dayan Kohans or the angels on one plane and humanity on the other. Nor Eastern Aryan esoteric works are so published, but we possess the Egyptian papyri, which speaks clearly of the 7 principles of the 7 souls of man. The Book of the Dead gives a complete list of the transformations that every defunct undergoes while divesting himself one by one of all those principles, materialized for the sake of clearness into ethereal entities or bodies. We must moreover remind those who try to prove that the ancient Egyptians knew nothing of and did not teach reincarnation that the soul, the ego or self of the defunct is said to be living in eternity. It is immortal, coeval with and disappearing with the solar boat. For the cycle of necessity, this soul emerges from the Tao, the realm of the cause of life, and joins the living on earth by day to return to Tao every night. This expresses the periodical existence of ego. The shadow, the astral form, is annihilated, devoured by the Urias. The manas will be annihilated. The two twins, the fourth and the fifth principle, will be scattered, but the soul bird, the divine swallow, and I want to say Uranus of flame, manas, and Atma Buddhai will live in eternity, for they are the mother's husband. Like alone produces like. The earth gives man his body, the gods, Dhyanas, his five inner principles, the psychic shadow of which those gods are often the animating principle. Spirit, Atman, is one and indiscrete. It is not the Tao. For what is the Tao? The frequent allusion to it in the Book of the Dead contains a mystery. Tao is the path of the night sun, the inferior hemisphere, or the infernal region of the Egyptians, placed by them on a concealed side of the moon. The human being, in their esotericism, came out from the moon, a triple mystery, astronomical, physiological, and psychological at once. He crossed the whole cycle of existence and then returned to his birthplace before issuing from it again. Thus, the defunct is shown arriving in the west, receiving his judgment before Osiris, resurrecting as a god Horus, and circling around the sidereal heavens, which is the allegorical assimilation of Ra, the sun. Then, having crossed the Nut, the celestial abyss, returning once more to Tau, an assimilation to Osiris, who, as the god of life and reproduction, inhabits the moon. Plutarch, Isis and Osiris, in her book, shows the Egyptians celebrating a festival called the Ingress of Osiris into the moon. Life is promised after death, and the renovation of life is placed under the patronage of Osiris Lunas, because the moon was the symbol of life renewals or reincarnations, owing to its growth, waning, dying, and reappearance every month. O Osiris Lunas, that renews to thee thy renewal. The Sifke says to Set 1, thou renewest thyself as the god Lunas when a babe. It is still better explained in a Louvre papyrus. Couplings and conceptions abound when he, Osiris Lunas, is seen in heaven on that day. Says Osiris, O sole radiant beam of moon, I issue from the circulating multitudes of stars. Open me the Tao of Osiris. I will issue by day to do what I have to do amongst the living, to produce conceptions. Osiris was God manifest in generation, because the ancients knew far better than the modern the real occult influences of the lunar body upon the mysteries of conception. Later on, when the moon became connected with the female goddess, with Diana, Isis, Artemis, Juno, that connection was due to thorough knowledge of psychological and female nature, physical as much as psychic. But primarily the sun and moon were the only visible and, so to say, tangible by their effects. Psychic and psychological deities, the father and the sun, while space and air in general, or the expanse of heaven called Nut by the Egyptians, was the concealed spirit or breath of the two. These father and son were interchangeable in their functions and worked harmoniously together in their effects upon terrestrial nature and humanity. Hence, they were regarded as one through two impersonified entities. They were both males and both had their distinct and also collaborative work in the causative generation of humanity. So much from the astronomical and cosmic standpoints view and expressed in symbolical language, which became in our last races theological and dogmatic. But behind the veil of the cosmic and astrological symbols, there were the occult mysteries of anthropography and the primeval genesis of man. And in this, no knowledge symbols, or even the key to the post-Diverian symbolical language of the Jews, will or can help, save only the reference to that which that was laid down in national scriptures for the esoteric uses, the sum of which, however clearly veiled, was only the smallest portion of the real primitive history of each people, often relating moreover, as in the Hebrew scriptures, merely to the terrestrial human, not divine life of that nation. That psychic and spiritual element belongs to mystery and initiation. There were things never recorded in scrolls, but as in Central Asia, on rocks and in subterranean crypts. Nevertheless, there was time when the whole world was of one lip and of one knowledge, and man knew more of his origin than he does, and thus knew that sun and moon, however large a part they do play in the constitution, growth, and development of human body, were not the direct causative agents of his appearance on earth. These agents being, in truth, the living and intelligent powers which the occultists call Dayan Kohans. As to this, the very learned admirer of the Jewish esotericism tells us that the Kabbalah says expressively that Elohim is a general abstraction, what we call the mathematics, a constant coefficient, or a general function entering into a construction not particular, that is by the general ratio 1 to 31,415, the astro-Dianic and Elohistic figures. To this Eastern occultist replies, quite so. It is an abstraction to our physical senses. To our spiritual perception, however, it is to our inner spiritual eye, the Elohim or Dianus are no more an abstraction than our soul and spirit are to us. Reject the one that you were, reject the other. Since that which is the surviving entity in us is partly the direct emanation from and partly those celestial entities themselves. One thing is for sure, the Jews were perfectly acquainted with sorcery and various maleficent forces, but with the exception of some of their great prophets and seers like Daniel and Ezekiel, Enoch belonging to a far distant race and not to any nation, but to all as a generic character, they knew little of, nor would they deal with, the real divine occultism, their national character being adverse to anything which had no direct bearing upon their own etherical, tribal, and individual benefits. Witness their own prophets and their curses thundered by them against them, the stiff-necked race. But even the Kabbalah plainly shows the direct relation between the Sephiroth and Elohim and men. Therefore, when it was proved to us that the Kabbalistic identification of Jehovah was Beni, a female Sephiroth, has still another suboccult meaning in it, then and then only the occultists would be ready to pass the palm of perfection to the Kabbalists. Until then, it is asserted that Jehovah is, in the abstract sense of one living God, a single number, a metaphysical figment, and a reality only when put in his proper place as an emanation of the Sephiroth. We can have right to maintain that the Zohar, as witnessed by the Book of Number, at any rate, gave out originally before the Christian Kabbalists had disfigured it, and still gives out the same doctrine that we do. It makes men immaculate, emanate not from the celestial man, but from the sepentary group of celestial men or angels, just as Primander, the thought divine. I'm going to leave that there, guys. Next time we'll go over stanza 3. And until next time, sending each and every one of you love and light. Things might be getting a little bit hectic around my place because I have to start putting a lot of things, moving a lot more things into places so that I can start getting out of here. So I just want to let you know, if I'm not frequently doing my readings like I did over the summer, I was very in and out. Just know that I'm in transition. Hope each and every one of you have a beautiful and blessed day, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.